to get into something interesting that you touched on. You were on an interview on another radio station, and I was like, I want you to expand on this because I think most women would love this, and also they would gain so much insight in terms of companionships, because also I think like that's a struggle now. I'm not sure if it's a Black people struggle or it's just a struggle in general, or companionship struggle in general, but I want you basically to maybe please touch on what should a female look for in a potential lifetime suitor, which is possibly your husband or wife for males, but particularly as a woman, you have a perspective of a female. Yes. So what would a female have to focus on or look for in a potential lifetime suitor?
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing, and I'm moved by women and men who are curious and are actively trying to understand how to be in intimate relationships with one another, because I think now more than ever it's harder. I do believe it is harder. In every generation says it's harder, so it's our version of how it is hard, because I think we're losing a lot of intimacy with social media. Yes. I think just because I see Gwen on Instagram, I know what's going on in Gwen's life. No, Gwen is curating that life. There's no problem with that. I'm not problematizing it. I'm saying life is so by the minute, by the second, it's not by the post. You're not. It's not in the thing. Sure. There's a whole way that I'm living that is difficult now to negotiate with one another. You know, because I'll say, oh, I didn't know you're in the city, or you saw me post that I'm in Rome or in wherever. It doesn't matter. So that navigating romantic relationships, I start there with a whole lot of sensitivity and a whole lot of just grace and kindness and encouragement. I was reading, there's a quote I like, or a poem, or an excerpt, I think it's an excerpt from a book, and she talks about how romance, I think it's a man actually, or let's say they, talk about how romance is romanticism is a very harsh philosophy. And I agree. Okay. And the reason it's a harsh philosophy is because it makes complementarianism the standard and not the outcome. Okay. Why I say that, and I'll pick up then from the interview that you had watched. A lot of us have been trained to look for a partner based on romantic ideals. But romantic ideals are deeply impractical. They are very, very impractical. Love is not very romantic. I say that sincerely as someone who loves her husband. I don't have romantic feelings when I think about God.
Yes.
I don't like however you interpret romance. It's not. Yes. It's deeply consistent. It's deeply stable. He's not. The things that are so tough for me in relation to God is, I'm not man that I should lie, or son of man that I should change my mind. Is what a person I can rely on in and out of season. So you're not going to change my mind about me now. You're not going to change my mind. And one of the hardest things about being loved, and I touch on this often, is the parts that we perceive are difficult to love. It's the parts that we hide from other people, even ourselves. It's the sin that keeps us bound, isolated in the darkness, that it's so difficult to let anybody into. That's why the work of sanctification is so difficult, is because it's working out, changing your mind and believing you are worthy, you are loved, even the murder, even the whatever you are coming from, I don't know what it is. Now, why I start there is you need to understand when you are looking for a partner, what are the ways that you would stumble, if I can put it that way, in understanding each other's darkness crazy, because that's actually what you're going to spend more time navigating. We're going to be navigating pride. We're going to be navigating unbelief, low self-worth, traumas, all of these things.
Yes.
That's actually what we're navigating in order to stay together, because we're together. Two heads are better than one. They have a greater reward for their labor. Gwen's plugged into what God's doing in her life. Nizenande, or the gentleman's plugged into what God. You come together with saying, we're going together. We're going to help each other in what God is. And He's going to also then create a blessing for this thing that is called marriage, that possibly accelerates us, takes us there. But we are going towards God's vision, right?
Okay.
For creation, for humanity. He said, and I bless them, multiply, dominion.
Yes.
So at a minimum, that's all you are both doing in your singularity and together. Now, if that is the case, what you need to understand is, how are you going to engage when we face opposition? How are you going to engage? It's really awesome to have those very lovely feelings too. It's really nice. They shouldn't, I don't believe in feelings making decisions for you. I'm not a big advocate for that. I know there's a school of thought that would come up against me. So when you consider that then as a woman, with all of that context, it's important then that you need to understand who leads him as he leads you. Because we are coming in together. God says he is going to lead. Whatever feelings you have about that, it's how he's created it. It works. There's a blessing in there. I fought it many years. I don't fight it anymore. It works. Okay?
It works.
Period.
As I would say, period.
It works. It's okay to get upset and get upset. It's okay. We all get upset. But come back, because it works.
Okay.
But you then need to know what leads him. Because a man who is led by himself, you are chasing his tail also with him. Who does he submit to? He also needs to submit. Who convicts him? What shows him? A lot of us are worshiping perfect versions of ourselves. So I believe this is how it should be. That's fine that that's what you believe, but being human and sinful says that there's parts where you're going to undermine the very belief that you have. So what calls you to a higher standard when you do that? What calls you? What says commit regardless of how you feel? Because he can change his mind. He is man, and so are you.
Yes.
But if he's not allowed to change his mind if he's in submission to God, God tells him. So we are all being led. Who are you? Who leads you? And that question is, where are you in your position with God? In relation to God, do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? Do you believe in deities? Do you not? It's an important question women should be asking men, because it's going to give you a clue to what he submits himself to, if he does at all. If he doesn't know how to submit, I would say no, very strongly. Just that.
Sure.
Or if he's submitting to, luckily, some men are submitting to their mother and father, which is not a bad one. But then the question is, are you willing to leave? Because you can't stay under their submission. You're not their child once you're a husband. And if you're in submission to them as the ultimate submission, what will replace them once you leave? You. So know who sets his standard for his life. Who sets the standard of your life? So that's the being in right position with God. And then the second one I said, and it's three things. The second one I said is, you must have labor. Labor, preferably if he has a job, it's really important because it's an easy one to locate labor.
Yes.
I wouldn't advocate, anyway, let me not go down that rabbit hole. But labor is, are you able to cultivate something from seedling to full grown? Because that's the work he's going to have to do with you. That's the work that because you have a womb, what he needs to know to do is how to work with you to take things from seedling to full grown. And he must tell you what evidence he has of that, because that's work. Where have you done this before? With whom?
Sure.
When? No, I tutored a child and he got 5 distinctions. That's amazing. That's labor. You know how to cultivate. You know how to make the thing become the thing it must be.
Sure.
Because that's a big part of his work, is if you're going to marry a woman, you need to let her become who God has purposed her to be, and you. That's what leadership also. I lead so that you can, we must all become what we are meant to become. You understand? And I take up the mantle of being responsible for that labor for all of us. Yes. But a leader must birth other leaders. Once I've enabled that, you must be able to allow other people and enable. So labor. What was the third one? So place with God. Labor. It's got to do with Genesis.
So it says be fruitful, multiply,
subdue the earth, have dominion. I'll remember. It's also the one that I always forget, but because it's probably the one I struggle with the most. I always
But
forget.
It's also so very important.
It's also
the
very
devil doesn't want it
yes,
to come out.
Exactly. It's also so important, but I know there's three. Give me a chance, it'll come.
Yeah, okay.
It'll come, I'll remember it. But those two are also
very,
a
very
good place
important.
to start.
Yes.
And they're quite critical when you are thinking of a spouse. And start there, because I don't know how it is that God designed love. When those things, depending on the answer that you get, you do, love awakens. Do not awaken love until it so desires. You open up. It's if a man says, I love God and my life is guided by God, you can't help but be like, so deep.
Yes.
So wonderful. He's a man of God. When he prays, that's how we get to those things, which is the romance, but those aren't the indicator. And you don't have to get stuck there. Sure. It's not romantic that he prays. He must pray vele as a man. But we can't help it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
The funny thing is, as you mentioned that, someone said on TikTok, how to test your partner and to see if where they are mentally and spiritually.
Yes.
Just call them and say, I'm having a problem right now. Please just pray for me.
Yes.
Pray right now. Yes. And he said, you'll see.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Call me in 5 minutes, baby. Yeah, those ones.
They were like, call him and say, right now, I'm in a predicament. I need you to just pray me out of this. Wow. You'll see.
I like that.
So it's going back to exactly what you're saying right now.
It's a nice litmus test. I like that. I think it's an important one. And I think,
From your point of view, you're married and you've been married for quite some time. What do you think is the struggle with companionships right now? Because the males are saying, no, you must learn to submit. The females are saying, no, I'm only going to be submissive to a man that is providing and loves me correct. Yes. So it's like a bickering and it's a back and forth between the two genders or same genders right now. It's,
Hey, we have to cover our bases. But yes.
Please. But the gist of it, there's two people in companionship and it's just like a back and forth. You must do this first and then I'm going to be able to produce. What do you think is the real problem right now? And is it just a black people thing?
What makes you say a black people thing if you don't, you say that often?
Most of the conversations I'm seeing on social media.
Yes.
So there was a particular lady that was praised because of how she responded to her man, or she was portraying submissiveness, and she was praised for a couple of days on the other X app, and then went on to other apps.
Yes.
And then there was also another post or on Twitter or something where someone was speaking about how much they hate their girlfriend or something, and then the guy math came through, and then it was like, oh, guys actually hate us because the guy started responding and they're saying, oh, I hate her when she does this, or when she calls me, I wish, so it's little things that are popping up where these conversations are springing up, and it's like almost like triggers. A guy would post something and the females will be there and they'll be offended. A female will post this and then the guys will be there and they will take offense. No, but you guys don't know how to do this. And I'm seeing this mostly with our black people. I'm not sure, maybe it's just my demographics and also the people that I'm exposed to, because I honestly cannot say I'm seeing the same bickering with white people. I'm seeing the same bickering with Indian people or colored people.
So that's why I'm going back to the race thing. Is it just a black people thing, or is it just a struggle for our current generation? What is really happening?
I hear you. Okay, I understand the black people bias. I think that one, let me start there. I don't think it's, I think we are majority of the population in this country and on the continent.
Yes.
And we are shaping media culture because, so you will interface more with the struggles of black people because it is mostly us. You understand?
Yes,
so I wouldn't want to, I don't like participating in reducing it to the thing that confirms or that is our environment. It's almost a confirmation bias. It is going to be mostly black because we are mostly the population and we are mostly social media culture that we have plugged into.
Okay, that gives me confidence.
Yeah. No,
I was getting a bit worried for my people. I'm like, guys.
No. I don't think it helps us to participate in the conversations that way. That context then helps us be like, because you can only say it's a black people thing if you go and see and find out and plug into the other cultures and see if they are plagued by the same thing. Do you understand? And you'd have to pursue it in this instance because it's not just readily available easily to you like our cultural influences are, which I think is amazing. It's great. I like it. I would be inclined to say it's an everybody thing. And the thing that we are navigating the most in intimate relationships, is pride. All of us. We are all needing to make it about ourselves. It's the crux of every struggle, every argument, you didn't hear me, you didn't think about me, and it's the crux of, so I have to take it here. It is also the crux of sin. It is the crux of the devil thought when he was busy being a cherub and being cute, he thought he could be God. That's pride. He thought, no, he makes it look so easy. It can't be hard. I can do this thing. And pride then, in the nature, he can't even repent. Satan himself. I'm sure he misses heaven. I'm sure he had a good time in heaven as an angel, as a little cherub. I think he had the best time of his life. But pride doesn't allow him to say sorry. It makes him throw tantrums. It makes him wreak havoc because he can't even just humble himself and say, I made a mistake. We participate a lot, or how we come at loggerheads with each other as humans in relationships is the concept of dying to self. It is too difficult. It's far too difficult. It is one of the most difficult things that you can even engage. It's so cringe in your own body, in crevices you don't know exist. And so every single thing, in my experience, in my perspective, can be boiled down to pride. And relationships struggle, and struggle in varying degrees. Our pride can get so violent. Our pride can become aggravation, anger, and it has layers. You know, I'm talking about the seed, the real core of it, but it can be clothed and cloaked in many ways and covered, and but it's the hardest thing about trying to form a relationship with someone, and I think that's why it's so clear, even biblically, that husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives, submit then unto your husbands. And this relationship is a horizontal display of the vertical relationship. That's what I believe about marriage. It's trying to, God has given us, in his sophisticated intelligence and knowledge and might and power, he's been so gracious to us and kind and patient to give us physical displays for our flesh of the spiritual requirements he asks of us. So when he says, I am your daily bread, I believe that we've been given food just so we can understand what he means by that. You need to eat every moment not every moment, but you need to eat every day.
Yes.
Every day it helps you. When you have breakfast, it kickstarts your day. When you don't eat, you have hunger pangs. So he's helping you say, if you can understand eating, you can understand me as your daily bread. If you can understand drinking, you can understand what it means for me to quench your thirst. If you can understand how the plant grows, you can understand. If you can understand children, you then can understand when I say you are my children. If you can understand adoption, it's the same with marriage. If you can understand and engage marriage, you can understand what it means, the relationship between me and my church through Christ. I am making a new covenant. I am making you anew. I am building you. I am being intimate. I'm recreating through you. I'm reproducing with you. Literally, marriage is the breeding ground for the complexities of salvation, for the human being. And that means that we are constantly needing to die to self. It's painfully difficult when it's not something that you can do no matter how good a person you are with ease, no matter how wonderful you are. A big part of marriage is how are we going to tolerate our dissimilarities with grace and love? Yes. How are we going to embrace our differences? The Gottman Institute, one of the leading global, it's actually the leading global research institute on marriage, says about 67% of all differences will never be reconciled.
Oh, wow. Sure. So some things can never be resolved. No counseling can
we are
help it.
Different.
Nothing.
You can't sway me if you never change your mind about the things you believe in. And you are so sure.
Sure.
How are you and I going to live together and figure this thing out? He may never change his mind. I may never change my mind. Yes. How are we going to raise kids? How are we going to build businesses? How are we going to keep our eye on what God is trying to build through us? And that's the difficulty.
Sure. Occupy till I come.
Till Jesus comes, yes.
What does that mean to you? And why that's specifically on your profile? It must be something that you really believe in. It must be something that you really advocate for.
I do.
And I think you have a strong sense of conviction about that scripture. So take us through that.
What concept? Till Jesus comes.
Yes.
It's a nice place to, freedom. The Egyptians, when they left the land of Egypt, of their oppression, they meander the wilderness, they come into to the Jordan River, and they come into Canaan.
Yeah.
What I would have loved for the Bible to say thereafter, I would have loved it. Okay, and I'm also sharing a lot of my faith because it's what I anchor in. It's very difficult for me to meander outside of it, and you're welcome to even engage that. But I take it as given, so that there's an invitation if you'd like to. But coming back to the Egyptians, what I would have liked, me as Nizenande, I would have liked for once they come on the other side of those gates, it's a spring of milk, waterfalls, olive trees as they walk. No one is there. I would have liked for there to be no one there except the land flowing with milk and honey and fruit. What was the occupants? And no waterfalls of milk and honey.
Nothing.
Instead, there were bees. There was wood. There were maybe cows. There was water, land that was fertile with water. Why do I say that? We have a perception that the land of our freedom or the territories that we must occupy have no inhabitants, number one. So what we find on the other side is they go into war for most of the book of Joshua. They are fighting. They are already in the land of their promise, but they are needing to fight and claim their stake for what the thing you imagine. If you want to be the next, I don't know, whoever you are, president, there is already a president. You're not going to just go and sit in a vacant spot that is now yours. It's got your name and it's got a bow. In South Africa, Gwen is going to be president of South Africa. It's there waiting for her. In heaven, yes. You are appointed to it. Fight, stand with something. You need to take and occupy that territory. Every territory has an occupant. Whether it's the territory of your mind, the territory of your heart. And what we need to be building is colonies of the Holy Spirit. The occupation of every territory should be who God says you are, what God says you can do, what God is calling you. If you have an occupation of your mind or an occupant, an inhabitant that tends to tell you that you are incapable, they need an eviction. Because in the land of your freedom, you can't not believe that you can. It's just not. Sure. It's just not what you've been called to. The territory of your relationships, the territories of your business, the territories, everything must be occupied and be brought under the submission of who God says we are, of what He wants us to do, who He is, etc., etc. And we have enough evidence that it involves frontier wars. So you said something earlier, and I really liked it around even when you think you're not deciding, you're deciding. The reason we fall into that trap is because for some reason we believe that creation has a void.
Yes.
When you imagine land of milk and honey, you imagine land of milk and honey. You don't imagine land with people and bees for honey, and cows for milk, and wood for houses. And we have such a kind of preference and bias, and I think it's towards ease, that it all must come to us. The sorrow is there's a tribe where Joshua finds out and he says, you haven't occupied your land. How? Why haven't you taken your territory? And the Bible says it was for their love of ease. It's what it says.
Sure.
Their love of ease. Because of their love of ease, they didn't occupy the land of their freedom. So what had to be done, they had to be cut. I don't want to be cut a little piece in the land of my freedom. Other people maybe, but I don't want you to cut me a little piece and say, hey, Niz, here.
Yes.
This is your, hey, you're such an irritating, hey, here, with your, no. Not when it's all been given to us. Take it. So that's why I say occupy until Jesus comes. I think I would like to encourage, or I do encourage people, men and women alike, of course with the bias on women, to perceive themselves in their most higher, successful, all of the things we talk about, we pontificate about somewhat on Instagram, on these platforms, and start to have a real revelation of the labor that's going to go into you taking up that territory, because there is always going to be opposition. Do not consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Perseverance must be mature and complete so that you'll lack nothing. I want to occupy the land of my territory lacking nothing. And so I need to know that it's persevering. There's this quote I don't like at all. It says, if there's something wrong with it, it means it wasn't meant for you. No ways.
Oh.
You know that thing. I'm not a believer in that thing. There are many things meant for you
that you have to fight
that
for.
you have to fight for, and you learn that as a leader. I didn't know.
Sure.
I didn't know. I sit with other female leaders, some of them top CEOs of leading global companies, and they tell you stories. Hey, you remember that one when that one took me to court? You remember that one? Hey, that one. Yes, they thought I'm a fool. They tell you stories where, hey, you remember that one when I got put in a CEO, they did a defamation. That one thought I'm a small boy, they don't know me. Those are the stories that you hear of women of integrity, women of real authority, women of love and grace and kindness, telling you stories of how they came up against opposition for things they knew they were theirs. And we have to have a mind that understands and engages life that way, the devil is not trying to let you occupy what God is calling you to. He's not, he doesn't want you to. He will come as an army against you. It does not mean just because there's an army, you mustn't go. The Bible is littered. Life, let's leave that aside. Life is littered with instances where it just doesn't happen easily. In fact, by the time it's happened easily, it's because you've won, possibly. Whether you won it in prayer, whether you've won.
So you fought either way.
Either way. Either way you fought. And I'm not advocating for physical fighting. I mean, for me, fighting is very spiritual. I know how I wage war, you know, but it's exactly that. So occupy until Jesus has not come. Frontier wars. Fight, fight, fight. You see, even in Joshua, they fight, fight, fight. They take that territory. They fight, fight, fight. They take.
Yeah.
So they are literally moving in and in and in and in. They fight, they stay. They take the next territory. They fight, they stay in that territory. They fight. You occupy the space. Every space. Occupy it. Go fight. In your mind even. Colonize your heart. Where there's a space that is called unbelief in faith, it must be occupied. All of them. I won't stop talking about these things.
As you speak about colonizing and fighting for your territory, I'm gonna have to honestly think that there's a particular narrative that was utilized to get certain territories in a way that was a God principle, but the way it was done was ungodly.
Absolutely. This is like colonialism. It's one of the things I've cried about.
Sure.
To be like, why did it happen?
Situation.
But it's because it was sitting on some real principles. Real principles. Do I believe it should have? No. It was awful. Do I think it's God ordained? No. But he says, I'm man that I don't lie, or son of man. God doesn't change. God, just because it's sitting in the wrong hands, God would rather die than undermine a law that he has called good. God doesn't change. He's not subject to time, space, or matter. Just because you misuse his creation, he doesn't come and like, I don't know, just because you
changes the law.
The law.
No, angisasho kanjalo. Okay. Fine, use it in the wrong way.
He can't undermine. He says, even when you are unfaithful, I remain faithful. He is faithful unto himself. The law, he will uphold his end of the bargain, no matter how awful you are. And so we have multiple examples of people understanding very God spiritual principles, being able to apply them, seeing fruit, but such poor fruit. There's a reason we have the example of a fig tree.
Yes.
Yes, because it was a fruit in the presence of the creator. What I think Jesus was saying to that fig tree was, you came into my presence and you did not bloom. You didn't. I called you to be. You know, I imagine that what nature would do in the presence of, if a leaf would not have wilted because there was no sun, but let's imagine that when he was walking maybe, you know, in movies when the flower opens up.
Yes.
Or the leaf, you know, opens up, or I'm sure that's why he was like, what spirit of pride is this, you fig tree, that in my presence you don't bear fruit. All I have to do, I am the word. I spoke you into being. Me walking on this ground, you are meant to come alive as a fig tree, and you don't, you are cursed. So that is the display of how you can still be subjected to the laws of creation. Right? It's the tree, it's a fruitful tree, but still not yield and use them according to God's will and purpose. So it's possible. It's absolutely possible. And I think it breaks God's heart. I think it makes him super sad. That's why he was like, you know what? Let me do this myself. If we can understand that, if we can perceive God more as a loving father than a jealous, I mean, it's important, you must perceive him as a jealous God, but just I think it hurts him. I think it hurts him the way we are faithless. I think if he had feelings, I think he had to do something, and there was nothing that was good enough anymore. And he said, I am the only good enough thing, so it has to be me. They convened, the three of them. He's like, guys, I have to go. It has to be me. I can't bear this because I can't take it back. I wish I could take it back. Me and you can take it back.
Yeah.
When I say to my child, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. And then they don't. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. He can't take it back because it happens when he says it. It's been birthed. When God says, I say this often, when God says, let there be light, there is light. So he can't change he can't say I was joking.
The light is already
there. He can't take it back.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't even know how I got there, but we won't stop.
We can go on. That's
That's the thing. I can go on. I know. Oh. I know.
Oh man, what a well of wisdom you are.
Amen. Thank you.
Oh man, as we close.
Okay, I'll try keep it short, but you'll fix things. Yes.
As we come to a close.
Yes.
What do you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
That I'm loved.
Oh man.
That I'm loved. That I'm loved and that I can be loved. No matter how ugly. You know, last year, keep it brief, but last year I went through such a difficult moment. And I was so convinced that this is it. This is the moment where everybody around you is going to be like, you know what? We can't do this. I'm sorry. No. And no one did. And I almost remember finding myself trying to find someone who would. So I ended up sharing just the grotesqueness of this thing more openly, more and more, or this experience with myself more and more. And no one rejected me. No one, my husband even said, oh, it's a bump in the road. I was like, hey, bump. And my friend was like, oh, don't you hate it when that happens? What do you mean, don't I hate it? I thought this is the last number, you know? So being loved, I think, changes everything, because there's no place you can't be fetched. There's no place fetched from. There's no place you can hide. Then you don't have to prove things. Then you don't have to, you can just rest in the joy that, and it's that I'm loved first. I think is critical. It's not that I can be, it's that I was loved first. So any love I give is a response. It's not a requirement for the love. If I never show love, I'm still loved.
Oh man.
How life-changing, how freeing, how wonderful to know that there's no version of yourself that can't be embraced, loved, accepted, seen, heard, allowed to authentically express itself. And we are loved for a reason. We're loved so that should be enough then to catapult you. Even if I fail, it's like a little child. It's ngiyathandwa mina.
Yes.
No, anginandaba.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry I hurt you, but ngiyathandwa nami. Nami, someone loves me. Even though I've done this, Nami, I'm lovable. And it's everyone, even the people you hate, even the people you wish you didn't like, they are loved, and God wants that for them, for all of us, because He loves us all. So,
alrighty.
that's it.
I know they will want to know where to find you.
Okay. They can find me. You can find me on Instagram at Nizenande Machi. You can find me on LinkedIn, Nizenande Machi. You can email me on nizenande at nizenandemachi.com. I think the website is nizenandemachi.com. Yeah, so those are the places. Don't send DMs, send emails. At least we can respond to emails. DMs about 10 million, and then. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Hopefully, and you can find me here.
Of course.
And you can find me here. You
course.
can find me on the interwebs, and you can of course find Karani Leadership. I mean, I think if people get disappointed, they think they're going to find me. You find an organization.
Oh, okay.
You understand. You won't find me specifically. You find a business that is doing its work, and they will ask you, why?
Yes.
Why do you need me? No, so start in those places.
Look at how blessed we are. Simtolile. I was like, this one, no.
But at least you can have a very honest account of why it is not a good idea to fetch me where you fetch me. It takes long, it's inefficient, it's so messy. But
don't do what I did.
No.
You won't get the same results.
You won't. She prays.
Do what she says you must do, not what I said I do.
Absolutely.
Oh man, thank you so much. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself.
It's such an honor to just sit in this realm and just take it all in and just learn and just self-discover.
Yes.
The funny thing is, as you speak, it's like you are revealing certain parts of me that I now will leave this place having embraced.
Wow.
And walk in my full potential, in my full being and self, with no reservations and no limitations, because I'm loved, and no matter what happens, I deserve love, and I can give love.
And you can get love. You're amazing.
We all have it.
You're amazing. Thank you, Gwen. Man. Thank you so much. I think it's important that I say this. It's not easy to know how to ask the question that gets the actual answer. And you're good at that. And so I hope you continue in the work. I think you're called to it, and it's really powerful. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good at it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Till the next episode, we love you so much. Please follow her on her platforms. There is more where this came from. Please follow her on her social platforms. And also, it's much love from me to you. Till the next episode. Goodbye.